Hey everyone, welcome back to Pearls of Motherhood, the podcast where we talk about the real, the raw, and the ridiculously beautiful parts of raising tiny humans. I'm Diana, and today it's just me. I went back and forth a lot about how to do this episode because this isn't how we plan to close out season 4. But then I realized that's really the most honest way to end a season about growing together, isn't it? Because nothing about motherhood goes according to plan. Before we go any further, I want to say this. Tessie is taking some time right now to be with her family, and we're going to hold space for her here. She did ask me to share if you're someone who prays, we would really appreciate your prayers during this time. It really means a lot because sometimes showing up as a mom means stepping away from everything else. We spend so much time in motherhood trying to hold everything together. The schedules, the routines, the emotions, the expectations. And if you're anything like me, you've probably believed at some point that if you just try hard enough, you can keep everything from falling apart. But here's the truth, and it's an uncomfortable truth. There are seasons where things don't hold together the way you're used to. No one really prepares you for that version of motherhood. So, here at Pearls, we talk a lot about routines and emotional regulation, structure, boundaries, and all those things matter. But there are moments, real ones, where those tools don't work the same way. There's actually a concept in psychology called intolerance of uncertainty, and it's exactly what it sounds like. When things feel unpredictable, our brains try to create control. So, what do? We tighten routines, we overplan, we try to stay on top of everything. And it's not because we're thriving, it's because we're trying to feel safe. And sometimes that shows up in ways we don't even recognize in that moment. So, little story time for me. There was a time for me after my C section where I should have been resting, like actually resting. I had help, I had support, I had an army of people around me, and I couldn't slow down. I was obsessing over my checklist. Laundry had to be done. They had to be washed and folded, even pressed. Like really ironing my clothes. Meals had to be cooked. The house had to feel in order. I was going up and down stairs and doing things my body had no business doing at that point. And at the time, I told myself, I'm just staying on top of things. But in reality, looking back, I wasn't staying on top of things at all. I was trying to create control in a moment that felt completely out of control. And I didn't have the words or the language for it then, but I do now. And that it was my brain trying to react to uncertainty. Everything had changed, my body, my routine, my identity, my life. And instead of slowing down, I tried to manage my way through it. Not because I was doing well, but because I didn't know how to sit in the unknown. And that's a hard feeling. So they always tell you it's the devil we always end up going back to something that is technically bad for us, but at least we know it, right? And here I was in the unknown, and I'm just grasping onto my checklist as this flotation device. And I know I'm not the only one who's ever done that because in motherhood, that can look like things like, I just need to get through today. Or if I can keep everything on schedule, I'll feel better. Or let me just hold it together just a little while longer. I can do this. I can do this. But what happens when you can't hold it together? When your capacity is lower than usual and life doesn't adjust around that? That's the part we don't normalize enough because somewhere along the way, we started believing that a good mom holds everything together. But what if that's not actually true? What if a good mom is someone who recognizes her limits, who adjusts her expectations, and keep showing up even when it looks different than before. And this is where I want to bring in something from our community here, because you guys always say it better than I can. This listener mail is from Emily in Columbus, Ohio. Hi, Emily. And she writes, "Hi, Diana and Tessie. I don't even know if I'm writing this for advice or just to feel less alone. I have two toddlers, and lately I feel like I'm failing at everything. Some days the exhaustion takes over and I struggle to control my emotions. I snap, I get overstimulated, and then almost immediately the mom guilt hits me like a wave. I'll replay the moment over and over in my head, thinking, why did I act like that? Why can't I just be more patient? And the hardest part is nothing is technically wrong. My kids are healthy, my husband is supportive, and from the outside, everything probably looks fine. But inside, I feel like I'm barely holding it together. I keep thinking that if I were a better mom, I'd be able to handle the stage more calmly, more consistently. I love my kids so much. I don't always feel like I'm doing this well. Does that make sense? Emily. First of all, Emily, thank you for sharing that. This is not failure. This is what it looks like when your capacity and your expectations don't match. And instead of adjusting the expectations, we turn it inward and we call it a personal flaw. There's actually research showing that self criticism makes emotional regulation harder. So, the more you beat yourself up for not handling things well, the harder it becomes to actually regulate. So, let's reframe it. The goal shouldn't be handle everything better. The goal maybe should be let's understand what you're carrying. And before we move on, I just want to say this. If you've ever listened to this podcast and thought, oh, I could have written that email, or gee, that sounds just like me, you're exactly who we want to hear from. You don't have to have the perfect words, you don't have to have it all figured out. Sometimes it's just I'm in a hard season and I don't know what to do with it. And that's enough because what we're building here isn't just a podcast, it's a space where moms can show up honestly, even when things aren't tied up all in a nice, neat little package. So if you want to share something, a question, a moment, a struggle, a realization, you can send it to us through our email at ideas@pearlsofmotherhood.com or reach out to us on Instagram or Threads or Facebook. Reread every single one. And chances are, if you're feeling it, someone else is too. So let's get into the pearls. Pearl number one, you don't need to hold everything together to be a good mom. Pearl number two, your capacity is allowed to change, and that matters. Pearl number three, not every season is meant to be optimized. And our final pearl, pearl number four, sometimes the most important thing you do is to stay. So this season, season four, was about growing together. And I think what I'm realizing right here at the end is growing together doesn't always look like forward momentum. Sometimes it looks like pausing and adjusting and letting things be a little messier than you planned. So, as we sign off for this season, we just want to remind you that at Pearls of Motherhood, we're still here. This community is still here, and we'll be back, just like moms always are. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.